the top 10 best popular songs of 2023. It's that time again where we look at the biggest singles of the year and rank them in a nice top 10 list. I'm sure you've seen many channels do this kind of thing over the years. You know, there's so many channels that do it really well. You've got Spectrum Pulse, you've got Todd in the Shadows, you've got the Double Agent, you've got many more that do a great job of capturing the top 10 best popular songs of every given year. They're always really fun to do, and I, since last year, decided to jump on the train and jump on board and start doing these myself. It is, of course, subjective, personal to me, what I personally consider the best pop songs of the year. There's no objectivity here at all. I'm not saying these are the definitive, you have to agree with everything I say video. That isn't how this works. I can only speak for myself. Okay, the criteria is, were you basically a big song in the year? Were you a big song in 2023? Were you? Well, you could be on this list, my friend. You could be on this list, okay? That is the criteria. It doesn't have to have come out this year. It could be a big song this year and make it into the charts and sell a lot of copies in this given year. That is how we're doing it here, because these days we know how TikTok has changed music, and there's a lot of songs that suddenly start getting really popular, even though they've been like 5 or 6, sometimes like 30 years old, 40 years old sometimes even. So we know how it is these days. That is just how we are seeing the world change in the music charts. Streaming, TikTok, it's changed everything. So it doesn't have to have been released this year, okay? That is not how this works. If it's a hit song this year, it's on the list, all right? Another thing is that because I'm from the UK, I probably will be making this more of a UK-based list. So there will be a few songs that may have not been global smash hits, but in the UK, they definitely made it onto the charts. And that's just how I, do my lists personally here. Because, you're going to get the American lists from everyone else out there that does these videos, so you're going to get something a little different when you watch mine, at least. So there's definitely at least 2 on this list that you might not recognize in the same way you'd recognize others because of that reason. But I actually think this was actually quite a decent year for music. I actually think this was quite a decent year for music. I think there's a lot of bad stuff in the charts, and we're not going to get into the ins and outs of all of that. I think there's a pointless conversation to be had in this video with that, when we could have it as a separate discussion, maybe in another video or elsewhere. But I do think we've got a lot of tacky crap hitting the charts, essentially. But 5 years ago, we also had tacky crap hitting the charts. 8 years ago, we also had tacky crap hitting the charts. I don't think it's any worse or any better than it used to be honest with you. It's always going to be the same. I mean, I've seen some of those viral compilation videos go around on Twitter with like the biggest songs from any random year, and you see the ones that come out like from 2014, and you see a lot of blah. Let me tell you, a lot of blah, and that's just how it is. So yeah, TikTok is kind of changing the way we listen and consume music, in better or for worse. You could lean more towards worse, I don't really know, but it has helped push some really cool songs into the charts. So I'm trying to look at it more of a positive angle and give you guys what I think is the best of the year, okay? I actually have room for 2 honourable mentions, would you believe it? I actually think Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat this year was a pretty good song. The sample I thought would be really irritating and destroy my brain, because I absolutely love Dionne Warwick's music, not just Walk On By the song, but I love her music generally. I think she's a fantastic singer and a fantastic artist that has great music and should be listened to by absolutely everybody. She's that good. And to hear that used here was just like, oh no, this could be absolutely awful. And you know what? I actually kind of like it. I think it's worked in pretty well. I'm getting a bit sick of sampling at the moment. I think we're really getting quite lazy with it. There's a lot of bad sampling. But I kind of have to hand it to Doja Cat here. She kind of killed it. I mean, that chorus is so bloody catchy. I can't take it away from her. I think this was a really good track, but didn't quite make the list. Similarly to Padam Padam, which is the massive comeback single from Kylie Minogue. Incredible to see that so many years after her last single, she found a way to break into the charts and become relevant again with a few tracks from this new album, by the way. A few tracks did float around the top 40 in the UK, which was great to see. She's always been a hit maker. She's always been relevant. She's always had a massive UK fan base, but she hasn't really had a hit since like 2010 or something. So incredible to see that she managed to make it big this year. It is a good song. Got a little played out for me. I think the more I heard it, the less impact it had. But that's not to say that her longevity isn't already remarkable. She's one of my favourite pop artists of all time. I mean, she's truly one of my favourite artists generally, actually, if you see the amount of plays I've given her and where she ranks in my all-time list on my Last FM. I clearly think her music is great. I just don't personally think this track was quite as impactful on me as it perhaps was other people. That being said, it deserves a mention though, but doesn't quite make the 10. So let's get on with the top 10. Let's go. Barbie was undeniably like the biggest event of the year. Barbenheimer, to be more specific, was just absolutely relentless and was such a huge cultural moment. And of course, Barbie being so iconic as a figure, as a moment in pop culture history, just meant that no matter what type of film we were going to get here, this was just going to be a massive smash hit. It just had to be, right? But of course, what we did end up getting was a pretty interesting soundtrack coming from that. And for me, Speed Drive was easily the highlight from it. It's a great hyper pop moment for Charli. I think it's really cool to see that she's managed to intertwine her hyper pop isms into a mainstream pop hit, because she's had a lot of hits. And she's got a lot of recognisable tunes, you know, Fancy with Iggy Azalea, Boom Clap, there's plenty more as well. But the songs that have actually ended up making Charli XCX and who she actually is as an artist have never made it into the charts. So it's pretty cool to see that she managed to make this happen. Of course, it being intertwined with Barbie really helped that. But it's a great little track. I mean, the interpolation of Hey Mickey on the chorus is pretty clever too. It doesn't hammer it in. It doesn't drag on for too long. It's literally just one line of the song. You get it immediately. And the beat is really great. It's worked really well into the chase scene in the film too. Yeah, I think it's a really fun, upbeat, extremely sort of ADHD hyper track that just highlights what Charli is capable of doing when she's really on it. And of course, that being said, you know, she's got so many more songs better than this. So it is a bit of a shame that this is one of her biggest hits recently, but I'm not going to deny that it's not a good one, because it bloody is. At number 9, we have Back on 74 by Jungle. This is a bit of a weird out there hit that I just wasn't expecting to see at all. Jungle have been pretty well received since their first album in 2014, and they've had quite a few recognisable radio singles, but they've never had a top 40 hit. And when I was peeping the charts and keeping an eye on them towards the back end of this year, like Octoberish time, I noticed this one started to creep its way into the top 40, and I was like, damn, really? I mean, it was easily my favourite track from the album, but it was great to see that it was actually starting to make a bit of an impact on the charts too. It's this really cool, slinky, funky, rhythmic track with just such an energy to it that feels so addictive. Like when you hear this song once, it's really hard not to want to play it again, and that's a huge compliment for this track. But that's what I like about Jungle. They have this kind of in their locker to kind of drop these really catchy, vibrant tracks that don't quite sound like anyone else out there that's doing music at the moment, but they are so memorable and so enjoyable too. It's got a really earthly sort of live in the moment feel that if you were at some kind of like funky jazz bar, this came on, it would fit right into the soundtrack and you'd want to dance too. Super underrated track for me, this one. I'm really happy to see that it became a hit, but like I say, there's going to be a few that made it into the UK, but I'm not quite sure if it made it anywhere else. But for me, I think this should have been a bigger hit globally for sure. At number 8 next then, we've certainly started to see a new wave of British, UK based DJs starting to make a splash in the charts. One of the biggest ones over the past few years has been Joel Corry, who has been hit or miss for me. I think he's had some good tracks, but I've also not been too keen on some of his output. I think he's put out some pretty trashy tracks. But one artist at the moment that's been incredibly consistent, has got a lot of clout behind him, and is known for his really fantastic live shows, is really starting to make it big in the mainstream too. Yep, it's Fred again with Obongjayar, which is one of the most unlikely collaborations I think I've seen in some time. And to see this become a top 10 hit in the UK was absolutely baffling and really welcomed from my part as well. Because this guy, Obongjayar, is like some kind of interesting indie artist that fuses a lot of cool styles together. I'm pretty sure Deep Cuts gave him like Album of the Year a few years ago, by the way. Like, this isn't some huge name that everybody recognizes. But suddenly out of nowhere, we saw this collaboration come through, and it's just such a really tranquil dance track. Like, it isn't too in your face. It's pretty low key. The vocals are really soothing, and they're really kind of like boyish and charming in a great way. But once the beat starts kicking in, I mean, god damn, Fred again is so good at doing these kinds of tracks, man. This is why I think he's becoming one of the biggest household names in the UK right now, because he has such a way of building tracks, creating an atmosphere that combines elements together of like drum and bass and house and dance all together to create a really cool sound. And yeah, it was great to see this really low-key track end up being one of the biggest songs of the year in the UK. I love that sample as well that comes in. That's like, I can't do it. It's like, I can't repeat it. It's so hard. It's like, if you've heard the song, you know what I mean. It pops up every now and then. It's great. Yeah, cool to see. And I think Fred again is now going to be that guy. We are at number 7 now. And yeah, the TikTokification of music is in full swing. We're seeing a lot of dance trends, carry songs, and just go super viral based on the fact that young people are willing to participate in these fun things to get a lot of views. I am not one of those people. I cannot dance at all, and I'm not going to pretend that I really know much about this trend on TikTok. I do use TikTok, but I don't know much about this particular trend. I just thought the song was pretty good. Can you snatch my soul from it? This is Tyla, who is an up-and-coming, well, maybe already there now, artist who combines some really cool Afro beats and R&B elements into her music that has obviously found a way to go super viral with one of her earliest singles, and will probably have a successful album next year too when it finally comes out. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with this. I think the lyrics are very in your face and don't really hold back, which can obviously be off-putting to some people, and it's always funny to me that songs like this end up getting huge with like young people, because it's like, do they even know what these lyrics mean? Like, anyway, I think it's just a really good song. I think the chorus is super catchy. I do worry it could get played out if I hear it more and more though, but for me, what I really like are the verses. I think Tyla's voice is really, really stunning. Like, when she lets loose and lets those notes just carry on those verses, she sounds fantastic. And that to me was one of the best parts of the track, which is always funny to me when I like the verses more than I like the chorus. It happens every so often with a song, very rare, but this is one of those cases for me. And yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for this kind of music making its way into the charts, and I think Tyla has a pretty bright future. I feel like people have started to forget about this song, but I'm not letting this song go, man. I think at number 6 here, we have one of the most cheesy and corny songs to ever grace the charts, but somehow it absolutely gets away with it. These lyrics should not be okay. Talking about Cupid and talking about how you're combining that kind of romantic element with Cupid. It seems so stereotypical, and yet it is just one of the catchiest songs I've heard in quite some time in the charts. Like, Jesus Christ, this song gets ingrained in your brain. Every line, every point of the track is just a melodic, like, earworm. Like, it is crazy how catchy this is, but I'm not going to lie to you, I think it's really good. I prefer this version to the one that got viral on TikTok, though. I think when you like speed up and turn songs into like chipmunks crap things. I'm not for it. It was the exact same as last year with Bad Habit by Steve Lacy. I was not all for that. I just wanted the original tracks. It sounded great as it was. It didn't need changing, and neither does this, okay? It's ridiculously sweet and catchy as it already is. Why would you turn it even more catchy and sweet when it turns it annoying? It's fine as is. Leave it. Danielle Hall and Kevin Parker of Tame Impala collaborating on a mainstream artist's pop song. This is like the most music nerd thing I think I've heard in the mainstream of the past like 5 years.
I come and I go. Tell me all the ways you need me. I'm not.
The minute I heard this was happening, I was just so excited to hear what it would turn out to be like. And honestly, it did not let me down. I think this is a really great track, and so cool to see that Dua Lipa is willing to branch out and collaborate with some completely new names that you wouldn't really expect to see on any mainstream pop artist's credits at all. I mean, Tame Impala isn't exactly obscure, obviously. There's been some huge viral hits coming from Tame Impala over the past few years, absolutely. But you haven't seen him collaborate with like anyone in the top 10 artists in the world, or the top 20 or the top 30 or the top 40 ever. And to see that happen now is really cool. And Danielle Hall, I mean, the production on the most recent Caroline Polachek album will tell you how talented and strong of a producer he is. So to see these two combine and create this track was really cool to see. And the outcome was great as well. I think this has actually been a bit underrated and maybe even a bit harshly done to, because we're now in the Christmas period of the year, so this is really starting to fall right down the charts, and all the Christmas songs are starting to make their way up the charts. Obviously it's December, of course, so I'm starting to worry that this song might get fizzled out a little bit and then people might just forget that it happened. But I won't forget. I think this is a really good track. It combines her kind of disco elements that she already came through with a new kind of psychedelic twist as well. It's just enough of a change to make it noticeable and to make it not feel like she's doing the same thing again, because this really sounds straight from the most recent Tame Impala album. Like, the production is straight out of the Slow Rush. You know, this could easily be the type of production you'd hear on a track like Lost in Yesterday, and to hear Dua Lipa sing over that, to me, I think just sounds great. Yeah, I'm all for this. I want to hear more like this, and I can't wait to see what she comes up with next. Boys a Liar at number 4, part 2 of course, with the Ice Spice feature on it. Yeah, this to me is just one of the most fun, carefree tracks of the year. I feel like the quotables on this track are really, really catchy and well put together. There's just so much charisma oozing out of these two on this track. It's a great collaboration that, again, you wouldn't exactly expect. Similarly to Houdini, I wouldn't have necessarily put these names together and thought this was ever going to happen and it would also work, because I just don't really quite see how that managed to come about. And PinkPantheress even said herself that she didn't like this song up until Ice Spice came onto it, and she suddenly became absolutely head over heels for it. And I can see why. There's just such an energy that Ice Spice brings on her verse that I think carries the track to a totally new level and gives it a totally different vibe and feel to the song that it would have had without her. I think this is a great track. It's super short, super straight to the point. It's not the best thing that PinkPantheress put out this year, for sure. I think her album is full of some fantastic tracks that probably won't get anywhere near as big as this, but it's 4th on my list, so that shows how good it already is. And yeah, just such a fun track. Peggy Gou is really at the peak of her powers right now. To have a smash hit coming through this year was perfectly timed for her, because she's already been bubbling around, similarly to Fred again actually, in that kind of, you know, DJ set environment where she was already headlining festivals, she was already making a name for herself through that kind of audience. And then, of course, now to have a hit is just amplified her success even further and now give her even more name recognizability. And Jesus Christ, what a track to get it with. This is easily the best song she's ever put out. Like I've heard pretty much all of her tracks up until this point, and she's got a lot of good ones, but this track really brought something out of her that we haven't really seen before. Like, it combined sort of 90s Euro house and trance elements in this kind of modern version of that. It feels nostalgic. It feels like a song that we've already heard before, but at the same time it feels totally new. It's such a cool feeling that you get when you hear this song, and it is also just a ridiculously catchy tune. Like, the amount of times I heard this on the radio, you know, unwillingly, if I was just out and about or in a car or something, was so often, and yet I never got bored of it. I really never got bored of it. This truly is one of the best dance tracks of the year. Might even be the best dance track in the mainstream we've had over the past 2 or 3 years. I mean, I'm definitely going as far to say that. And yeah, great to see that it was pretty much a global hit. Like, this was massive in Germany, this was massive across Europe, this was massive in the UK, it made it across the States too. Yeah, really cool to see that Peggy Gou, who is already being a bubbling, exciting talent coming through, get that hit. It's a good time. It's a good time to be alive. I did specify right at the start of the video, I had to make sure that you were aware of the criteria. That if you were a hit in 2023, you are justified to be on this list, because this is the biggest songs of 2023. Okay, this is what this list is about. This isn't my overall favorites list. This isn't the be all end all best songs of the year according to Ryan list. These are the biggest hits of the year and what my favorites were. Okay, and at number 2 we have one of those. And did anybody see this coming? Like, be honest with yourself, be serious, man. Did anybody?
I said, okay, my infatuation and translating to another.
Okay, fair enough. This wasn't like a smash top of the charts hit, okay? This wasn't like topping the charts across so many countries, but this was a hit this year. And suddenly out of nowhere, we saw this track get insane amount of streams. And still to this day is getting ridiculous amounts of streams. It's crossed 1 billion streams now. And where did this even come from? I mean, this was a great track when it came out. This was already on my 2017 Best Songs of the Year list. So again, we're finding it make it onto a totally new list 6 years later. But why did people not like it enough then to make it a hit? I don't get it. It's so weird. TikTok is strange. But anyway, See You Again, Tyler, the Creator. I mean, I don't even know if I'd put this in his best songs of all time list, to be honest with you. Like, if I were to make a top 20 Tyler, the Creator songs, I don't know where this would rank. But that is how good it is, because even though it might not necessarily rank in that kind of list, it still ranks in this list and is easily one of the best mainstream tracks of the year. This track is just so good. Kali Uchis comes in with a wonderful vocal contribution. Tyler's verse after that first verse is just absolutely relentless. The way he's going off on that beat, he sounds great. It's got a great video as well, this track, actually. An underrated video, I would say, too. But yeah, just really cool to see that Tyler, again, is kind of making his way to the top of the top. I mean, it's funny how they talked about that on the track Rise from Call Me If You Get Lost. You know, he's going to get to the tippy top, and he kind of has done that. I think by the time he gets to a new album, he could have an even bigger hit from it, because yeah, I think he's at that point now where he's really at that level where he can make something really fantastic that so many people would take to. Because we're seeing this a lot with Tyler. He's got quite a few tracks that years after they came out slowly started to become, you know, cult classics, and to see it make it into the charts in multiple countries was really cool to see. So yeah, I'm very happy to call this the second best mainstream hit of 2023. And it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there, because what I consider the best popular song of 2023 also didn't come out this year and is already quite a few years old. And I feel vindicated about this one, guys. I am going to brag for this entire segment, because I friggin' said at the time this was one of the best songs on the album, and why the hell wasn't it pushed as a single? I don't care if I come across as an absolute arse throughout this entire segment, but I have to celebrate my vindication, because I was friggin' saying all this time this was one of the best tracks on the album, and maybe even one of this artist's best ever songs. Maybe. and yet it wasn't pushed. Why wasn't it pushed? So no, this isn't just revisionism where I'm like, oh, this is the best song of the year, but I didn't realise how good it was before. No, I always knew. I told you. Lover has to be one of the weirdest mainstream albums of the past 5 years, in that it didn't know how to release singles properly. I mean, we had You Need to Calm Down pushed, which is this kind of tacky song, honestly. Like, I think it's trying to say something and actually doesn't end up saying anything at all, and just comes off as really annoying. That was one of the hit singles from it. Don't know why that was a single. And then, of course, the track with Brendan Urie, which sounds like a friggin' children's nursery rhyme that you would find, like, when you're looking to show children a sort of like times table song, and find anything on YouTube. It sounds like it was made for that kind of audience, honestly. Like, what the hell were they thinking, dropping those two as the big singles? I have no idea. And then you had Cruel Summer sat right there, that they did nothing with, and it took 4 years for the fans to turn it into a hit. It was the fans that generated this happening. They realised that this song was actually friggin' great, and I guess it was part of the Eras tour that she was doing, and a lot of people just started to generate a lot of buzz from it through that. Look, man, this song is fantastic. This really is a beautifully crafted pop song that has such a wonderful synth pop atmosphere to it that feels really nostalgic. It feels super pretty. The vocals sound fantastic as well. This is Tyla at her absolute best. She's emotive. Her delivery is full with so much power and expression. I mean, she is singing her arse off on this track. It's insane how much she is going for it. Excuse me, but yes, just a really, really beautifully performed track. The bridge is stunning as well. Yeah, I just think the track is just fantastic. It's a euphoric rush of beauty whenever you hear it. It makes you feel so good. And this, to me, just has to be the biggest and best hit of the year. And look, Taylor Swift is running the industry at the moment. She truly is the biggest artist around. I actually have a few gripes with some of her most recent material that's coming out. But it is great to see that when push comes to shove, the cream will rise to the top. And this truly was the best song, or at least the second best song, off of the Lover album, behind maybe the title track. That's a great track too. And for it to become a hit now, I'm not against it. I very much am on board with this being a hit. And yeah, for me, in 2023, out of all of the tracks I heard out and about, at parties, at bars, on the radio, whatever, in my own time, this was the best of the best that came out and made a splash in 2023. And yet it came out 4 years ago, so there you go. And that's the list. That is the 10 best popular songs from 2023, in my opinion. Obviously, not all of them came out this year. I keep repeating that point because I think it's important to recognise that times have changed. I mean, there were so many songs that weren't out this year that were massive this year. There was a Weekend track, Die For You, that got big. There was a Miguel song from like 2010, Sure Thing. That was in the charts for a while too, among many other tracks that became huge this year too. So they were my favourites. There are, of course, going to be some misses that you guys won't agree with, and maybe some omissions as well. I mean, I don't have Flowers in here by Miley Cyrus. It's fine. I don't think it's a bad song. I don't think it's a particularly great song. And there was Olivia Rodrigo tracks too. Well, they were okay too, but actually my favourite track on that album didn't become a hit. So there you go. That's my list. Tell me your top 10 in the comments. Tell me if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me. Absolutely would love to see your input. Check out my Patreon as well. You can support me over on there. It's going to be more 2023 year-end list content coming soon. And that is it from me. I apologise, I've got a bit of a sore throat at the moment, so my voice might sound a little croaky, which is very sad. I don't like to record videos with a croaky voice. But hopefully you bared with me. Hopefully you stuck with me and enjoyed this list. Thank you. Subscribe. Have a good day. Goodbye.